She was sitting at one of the tables when I saw her, eating hot wings. I just pushed my chair back alone. There were only 3 singles in the establishment. She was alone, and my eyes just ran over her, not even noticing what I saw. Then I did a double take. She was great. She had long red hair, the kind of fiery orange you sometimes see. She was wearing a tight skirt and top that showed off all her assets, and she had plenty of advantages. Some loser came up and tried to start a conversation with her. I saw her wave him off. She was great. She was also deadly and deceptive, and she would break your heart. I knew this because I was married to her for 5 years. Her name was Ripley, she worked at a huge radio station, and I hoped she wouldn't see me. I ordered pizza. There was a wood-fired pizza oven in the basement, and they made good hot wings too. I bought a basket of wings and a nice dark beer and enjoyed them while watching Razors playing basketball on one of the big screens. I sensed danger and looked back and saw it. "Hi, Kane," she said. "Do you mind if I move the chair?" Her voice was everything I remembered, low and hoarse. It was good whiskey, a Dominican cigar, and Nat King Cole on the stereo. "Yes, Ripley. In a way," I said. "I'm trying to enjoy good food." "It's hard," she said. "How long has it been? 3 years? How many times have I tried to call you? How many times have I come to your house, spent the night in your office, tried to talk to you?" "Too much," I told her. "I have nothing to tell you, Ripley. Why don't you just leave me alone? If you try to sit here, I'll leave. They'll slip you a check." She threw back her head and laughed. It was a low, exciting sound, and at some point, it would send a jolt through me like nothing else in the universe. Now I just feel sad. "I don't mind," she said. "I think my credit card will hold up. She probably earned more than me." "You're not stupid. You know I don't want anything to do with you." "What do you want, Ripley?" I asked her. "I want to talk to you, see how you're doing, tell you what I'm doing, ask how Kelly and Sam are doing, how Atlas is doing, and tell me some things. What will hurt? Am I so ugly that you can't stand the sight of me? Are you still that mad at me? Do you still hate me that much?" I asked. "Why? What do you care about Mom and Dad or my dog? I don't care what you do. We're not friends, Ripley. I'm sure you're not interested in my life, and I'm damn sure I'm not interested in hearing what you have to say. Leave me alone, Ripley, or I'll tell the manager you're stalking me." She cocked her head to the side and raised an eyebrow in a gesture I was familiar with. She sighed. "Okay, Kane, as you wish. I guess I'll just have to pull out the big guns. Now don't move." She returned to her table, and I saw her take her phone out of her purse. She took her purse and went to the toilet. I had no idea what the big guns were, and I really didn't want to find out. They brought me the pizza, and I told the guy to put it in the box. I followed him to the counter, paid and left. Lord, another evening went to hell. I went home, grabbed my pizza, and sat by the pool. I grabbed a few bottles of beer, throwing them into the refrigerator along with the ice. I was enjoying my pizza, leaning back in my lounge chair, listening to the Beatles, when I heard the gates open and close. I have a wooden fence for privacy, and there is a spring on the gate to make sure Atlas doesn't get out. I opened my eyes and groaned. It was her. What the hell is going on with this woman? Of course she knew where I lived. She was watching me. And then I realized something. She was not alone. A small shadow flashed behind her. She had a head of curly black hair about a foot long, fair skin like Ripley, very blue eyes, and she was the most beautiful little girl I had ever seen. She seemed very, very shy. She tried not to look me straight in the eyes, hiding behind Ripley. As Ripley stopped in front of me, a small shadow walked around to the other side of her and took her hand. Ripley knelt down next to me and carefully moved the small shadow forward so I could see it. Her eyes looked at the ground, and Ripley slowly lifted her small chin with one finger so that our eyes met. "Kani, I want to introduce you to Makina," she said. "Makina, this is Kane." I didn't really know what to say, so I extended my hand. What an idiot. Little girls don't shake hands. And this one, yes. She placed her chubby little hand in mine. I saw children's dimples on their knuckles and her fingers. "Hi, Kane," she said. "Hello, McKenna," I said. "Brilliant, right? I never knew what to tell my children, Most areas of conversation that you would have with adults are simply closed. So where do you work? I asked her. She giggled. Now this was worth dying for. I wanted her to do it again. I'm not working, silly, she said. She had the sweetest voice you could imagine. He was low and somehow hoarse, a little hoarse. I think when she grows up, she'll be a lot like Ripley. I'm too young to work. How old are you? I asked. She held up her 3 perfect little fingers. 3 then, I said. Wow, perfect age. You are a very beautiful little girl, you know that. She blinked her incredibly huge blue eyes. Yes, I know, she said. We both laughed. I looked at Ripley. She watched us with a strange expression on her face. It's a big gun, she said. What's in it? What are you talking about, Ripley? I asked. Look at her, she said. Take a closer look at her. I watched. She was great. I still didn't understand what Ripley was talking about. The girl spoke. Kane, can I swim in your pool? Of course, McKenna, I said. Right now? She nodded. Your dress will get wet, honey, said Ripley. Remove it? Suggested hopefully McKenna. Ripley looked at me. What the heck? I shrugged. Okay, honey, she said. I'll stay here and talk to Kane. Damn, now I'm stuck. McKenna, see the black 3 painted on the edge of the pool? I asked. She looked. What is a troika? She asked. I took one of those chubby little hands and drew a number on the palm. Looks like it. She nodded. Yes. I see it. Don't pass her by, I said. Okay, she said. Why? It's too deep for you, I told her. She nodded again, kicked off her shoes, pulled the little white dress over her head, and handed it to Ripley. Here, Mom, she said. She ran up the steps, giggling, wearing only her panties, and within seconds she was splashing around. I froze. She called Ripley Mom. When I came to my senses again, Ripley was already sitting down on the lounge chair next to me, holding a bottle of beer in one hand and a slice of pizza in the other. What the hell are you doing? I asked. Do you like her? She asked. She's beautiful, isn't she? She's also very nice. I know you'll love her, Kane. I muttered something incomprehensible for a minute. Yes, she's great. Mother, is she yours, Ripley? When did it happen? Well, obviously, 3 years ago, she laughed. Yes, she's mine, Kane. She could be yours too, if you're interested. My brain was very stupid. What do you mean by this? What's going on here, Ripley? Why did you bring her here? Why are you here? You left me, remember? You needed to find yourself? Why can't you leave me alone? She laughed again. Which one do you want me to answer first? I brought her here so she could meet her father. I've been trying to do this for 3 years, but you're too much of a coward to face me so I can introduce you. I was panicking. Her father? I don't... What the... Fuck you, Ripley. I'm not a coward. Can't you get it into your head that I don't want to be around you? I think it's time for you to leave. I won't leave, she said. You'll have to call the police to get rid of me. Do you really want to get rid of her? She nodded towards the pool. You're her father, Kane. Look at her, can't you feel it? This little wet beauty found some pool toys and was happily playing with them. I'd better get her some towels, I said. There was a huge lump in my throat, and I felt myself starting to lose the control that I so desperately needed around Ripley. I got up, went into the house, and grabbed several large, fluffy towels. Atlas looked at me sleepily, rose to his feet, and leisurely followed me out. He saw Ripley, and his stump of tail began to wag furiously. Then he noticed McKenna and began to squirm with his whole body. He ran to Ripley, and she hugged him. Here comes my mother's big guy, she sang. He licked her face, almost covering her with his huge pink tongue. She looked at me, a drop of drool hanging from her chin, and laughed. Is one of these towels for me? I couldn't help but chuckle. All mastiffs drool. Neapolitans drool more than most. Atlas is a 160-kilo male Neapolitan mastiff. I bought him as a puppy while Ripley and I were still married." "Yes," she cooed. "Mom really loves you. She missed you very much." It ruined my mood. I think I remembered that she was the one who left. If she missed him that much, she knew the cure. McKenna. I saw him and squealed with delight. She splashed up the steps of the pool and I wrapped her in one of the towels. "Is this Atlas?" she asked. "Mom told me about him. Can I pet him?" "Yes, he would like that," I said. She ran up to him and her mother on tiptoe and threw her arms around his neck. He was panting with joy, all his loose, wrinkled skin trembling with effort. She looked at her mother. "I want him, Mom," she said. Ripley looked at me and raised an eyebrow. She wiped McKenna, pulled her dress over her head, and watched as she ran away, throwing a ball for Atlas to chase after her. "I don't believe you," I said. "Yes, I know," she said. "I'll get evidence. I'll do a DNA test. I've never cheated on you, Kane. And you know it." I didn't know it, but it didn't matter. "I need to see this proof," I told her. Her lower lip pouted. It was amazing and made me want to kiss her. "Until she broke your heart." "I thought you would say that. You'll have to cooperate. I'll need a cheek swab. I would have done this a long time ago if you hadn't run away every time I tried to talk to you. I started to lose hope that I would run into you. You hid yourself very well." "Ripley, you left me, remember?" I said. "You weren't happy? That's what you told me. We got married too early, there was a whole life waiting for you, and you wanted to explore it. This is what you said, and this is what you did. You tore my heart out. I loved you with everything I had. It wasn't enough for you. You wanted more. I don't know what the hell you wanted. All I know is that you moved out, went on your merry way exploring or something. Okay? You have every right to do whatever you want. 3 years have passed already. Why are you here? Don't bullshit me." "Kane, did I divorce you?" she asked. "No, you just left me," I said. "Exactly," she said. "You divorced me, not the other way around." "What did you expect?" I asked. "Not this," she said. "Why do you think I didn't mean what I said, Kane?" "Well, the thing is, I saw you in White Rhino with the big guy," I said. "He has dark hair and blue eyes, doesn't he?" "You bastard," she practically spat it out. "Charles was my colleague, we performed live there, and he is the biggest asshole on the planet. Did you really think that I would ever voluntarily be with him somewhere?" "I thought you were having a good time," I said. "I'm an artist," she growled. This was the same Ripley I remembered. "So, how is the search going?" I asked. "Have you found yourself?" Jesus, Kane, you really can be such a jerk sometimes. She took a deep breath. "I didn't come here to fight you. I need to explain something to you." "I don't want to hear it," I said. "Well, this is very bad," she snapped. "You have a daughter, Kane. I'm her mother. She is our daughter, and you must listen to me. She needs a father in her life." "Maybe the big guy will be interested in your story," I said. She sighed. "Kane, there's something you need to know. I never wanted things to turn out this way. I never meant to hurt you like this. For God's sake, I was 24 years old. We got married when we were 19. I felt like I was suffocating. I didn't leave you. I just needed some time alone. I tried to explain it, but I'm afraid it didn't work. You got angry and divorced me. For God's sake, you moved to Alaska. Alaska, Kane? Really? Is this the place you thought would be the furthest you could get from me?" "Yes, as a matter of fact. That's how it was," I said. "You left me. We talked about children, and then a month later it all went down the drain. You left. It was your choice." "Yes, I moved out," she said. "I was scared. I was losing myself. The thought of a child scared me to death. I just panicked. I know this sounds like a bunch of crap to you. And for me too, now that I'm not a stupid, immature child. I felt like there was no me, there was only use. And I felt like I was losing my identity. I panicked and was stupid, okay? I never really wanted to leave you. I just needed a little space. A little time to understand who Ripley really is and what she represents. I thought that I would see you every week. make love to you, so that everything would be the same as when we met. I didn't leave you, Kane. I didn't want another man. I wanted us to remain exclusive, but you were too busy, yelling at me to realize that. I was just trying to establish myself as my own person. I thought that a few months would pass, and I would return. I loved you, Kane. I still love you. You caused me a lot of pain when you got so angry. I know I hurt you, and I have to tell you how sorry I am. I'm so sorry, Kane. I spoiled it all. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. I remembered our last conversation. I screamed, furious and frustrated. She told me she was leaving in a week, and my anger, pain, and uncertainty grew throughout the week. When she pulled up with the truck and I realized she was really leaving, it all came out. It wasn't pretty, and that was the last time I spoke to her. Oh, she tried. I just wasn't in any condition to deal with her. I wasn't able to do it that day either. "What do you want from me, Ripley?" I asked. "Is everything okay, Ripley? I don't believe a single word you say. You understand this, right? I think you've found your identity. I don't know what you're playing here, but I think you should leave." She sighed irritably. "I expected all this, Kane. I expected you to feel this way. You never gave me a chance to explain what was going on. You never showed up, avoided me like the plague, and ran away every time I tracked you down. You know the court ordered counseling, right? The problem was that you were in Alaska and we couldn't communicate. Eventually, I just gave in and let it pass. Give me a chance, that's all I ask. Let me come and talk to you. Let us come and talk to you. If not for me, then for her." She nodded toward McKenna as she walked toward us, placing her hand on Atlas's broad back. "What about her, Kane?" I couldn't say anything because she was standing next to me, McKenna. "I love Atlas," she said. "Kane, when you become my dad, can I sometimes stay here and play with him?" Now it wasn't fair. There's no way in hell that would be fair. Things got worse when she climbed onto my lap and placed her curly head on my chest. "Hold me," she said. She curled up as if getting comfortable. I shot a furious look at Ripley, but she just laughed. She knew very well that this little girl was irresistible. "I have a couple of errands to run," she said. "It will only take a couple of hours. It seems McKenna wants to sleep. Can she stay with you?" "No, This magnificent face rose to me, and sleepy blue eyes melted my soul. "Please, Kane. Mom does boring things, and I'm very tired." "Okay, let's go into the house," I said. I carried her, and she was as light as a feather. Ripley was carrying leftover pizza and a cooler. I sat down on the sofa, and McKenna curled up on my lap. "It's cold," she complained. I grabbed the blanket from the back of the sofa and covered her. She squirmed until she was comfortable, and her breathing became slow and deep. I could hear Ripley busy in the kitchen, putting the pizza on plates and then in the refrigerator. She brought me a beer, opened it, and put it on the table where I could reach it. Damn that woman. She stormed into my house and made herself feel at home, like she had every right to be here. And she got away with it because she knew that McKenna had me wrapped around his finger. She looked at us for a long time, and I saw tears appear in her eyes. I didn't expect this. Bright green eyes sparkled as she turned, grabbed her purse, and headed towards the door. "I won't be long," she said over her shoulder. Her voice sounded strange, and I saw her wiping her eyes as she closed the door. I watched sports on TV and drank beer. Occasionally, McKenna sighed quietly in her sleep, and then Ripley was kneeling in front of us and looking at us. I woke up, and McKenna was still sleeping. Ripley noticed that I was awake and reached out, cupping my cheek with her hand. "Take her to the car, Kane." I stood up carefully, trying not to disturb my tired load, and carried her out. Ripley opened the back door of her Escalade, and I carefully seated McKenna on the seat. There was a small pillow on the seat next to her, and I propped her head up with it. I couldn't help it. I kissed her tiny cheek. She sighed and made herself a little more comfortable. I stood up. Ripley stepped closer to me, hugging me, and kissed me on the cheek. "Thank you, Kane," she said. "Can we come over some evening after you finish work? I really need to talk to you. I'll bring the tools to collect material for DNA analysis. I'll bring her. Please." "Friday at 6, I said. I didn't trust myself anymore, so I pushed past her and entered the house without looking back. I stood with my back against the closed door for a minute, then shook my head to clear the cobwebs. It was a hell of a night. For the rest of the week, I was worthless at work. My mind kept replaying the feeling I had while sitting on the couch and holding this little angel in my lap. Visions of an incredibly beautiful and passionate redhead filled my dreams at night, and I woke up exhausted. Something was nagging me. Something Ripley had said. Something I couldn't quite remember but was important. On Thursday, it finally dawned on me. She said something about how if I stayed in town, I'd see my mom drop off McKenna. What the heck? I visited my parents regularly, and they never said a word about Ripley or the little girl. With Ripley, obviously. I made it clear that I didn't want to talk about her. The little girl that could be mine, that they're babysitting, it was a completely different story. That evening, I invited myself to dinner with my parents with 4 famous words: "We need to talk." I was still upset when I got home, but dinner and talking about other things calmed me down enough to listen. Mom said they didn't tell me about McKenna because they didn't want to look like they were pushing me to reunite with Ripley. Well, that was fair enough, and I was pretty furious about not wanting to talk about her. It looks like they were communicating with her. That is, with Ripley, from the very beginning. She told them the same crap she told me about finding herself and seeing if she could do it on her own. It still didn't make sense to me. Her career was completely on its own, and it was going great. Besides, shouldn't married people do things together? I still thought the real reason was that she wanted to try someone else, or more than someone else, before we started having kids. It was the only reason that made any sense to me, and I said so. "I don't think that's the problem," said my mother. "I know what she said is crazy, but I think she was really sincere. She thought that you would live separately for a few months, and then she would return. She had every intention of being faithful to you, and as far as we know, she was until the divorce was final. Are you saying that you bought this lie?" "No, son, we didn't do that," said Dad. "We told her it was the stupidest thing we had ever heard. When she came to us crying because you left, we asked her what she expected after such a stunt. You know, she actually said that she expected you to be upset for a while, but calm down and wait for her to return. By the time we finished talking to her, she knew she had royally screwed up, but neither of us knew what to do to fix it. We didn't even know where you were. We didn't have the heart to tell her to leave," Mom said. "We tried to help her come to her senses, but I don't know how successful. Then she told us that she was pregnant. She swore that the child was yours, but we didn't believe her. Still, we tried to help her prepare to become a responsible mother. She's really great, Kane. She went from being an entitled, flighty princess who would act on any stupid idea that came into her head to being a responsible adult who could raise a child. Did you know she cut half her radio time and almost all her outside appearances when she was born? McKenna? I did not know that. Kane, I know how much you loved Ripley, so I know how much it hurt you when she left." "I don't blame you for what you did," Dad interjected. "Ripley was absolutely selfish and incredibly stupid when she left you, but she's not the same girl anymore. Your mom and I see a lot of good things in her, especially when she's with McKenna. I think it's in your best interest to give her a chance to show you how she's changed. If you don't do it and she decides you'll never do it, she won't be on the market long. I didn't think it was worth pointing out to my parents that Ripley was, by her own admission, an actress. She is good at fooling people. On the other hand, my parents were great judges of people. Stupidity was one thing, lying was another, and they were convinced that she was simply stupid. At least she was consistent. She told them the same thing she told me. I needed to think about something, so I took Friday off and went fishing. I have always found the process of finding the perfect spot to land a fly cathartic. I'm alone in my head, just the sound of rushing water, the movement of the rod and line working together to make the perfect cast. I caught 2 big rainbows and 1 brown and felt much better. Maybe I was even confident enough to face Ripley and McKenna. I stopped and grabbed some shrimp and ingredients to make shrimp Alfredo linguine. I steamed some vegetables, tossed in a salad, and opened a bottle of wine. I had apple juice for McKenna, and I hoped she would like it. I hated the thought of exposing myself to Ripley again. I still felt the pain and rage from last time, and now I was letting it open up the cracks again. I almost threw away my dinner. I had a pot of pasta in my hands, but I put it back on the stove. I thought about just leaving and not being there when they showed up. Then again, maybe my parents were right, and I had the wrong idea about what she did. I saw Atlas lift his head, and his little ears bobbed back and forth. He stood up with a groan and walked into the living room. This usually means he hears the car outside, so I mixed the Alfredo sauce, pasta, and shrimp and stirred everything together. I should have added Parmesan cheese, but I'll do that right before I put it on the table. The doorbell rang, and I went to open it. There they stood. McKenna again hid behind Ripley, but when she saw Atlas, she rushed forward and hugged him. He never liked it when I hugged him, but he didn't seem to mind when she did. In fact, he was squirming all over. She was even more stunning than the last time I saw her. She was wearing a beautiful little red dress, and her curly hair framed her face like a halo. Ripley, well, she was just Ripley. She wore a dark green dress and looked stunning. She's tall and slender, but she's got curves in all the right places. Her waist is long, thin, and flexible. Her hips flare out dramatically, and she has the roundest, firmest butt imaginable. My eyes trailed up to the heart-stopping swell of her breasts. They were on display and showed off a little cleavage. Stuck into this valley was a gold chain with a tiny jade dagger attached to it, which I gave her for her 18th birthday. My eyes slid to this face. High cheekbones, a thin, aristocratic nose with a scattering of freckles, huge emerald eyes, and plump red lips curved into a smile. She had a cream pie in her hands. "Hey, Kane, have we passed the test?" She laughed, and I felt the same awe come over me. I cleared my throat. "Yes, you two would have stopped the train." I stepped aside, and she went into the kitchen and put the pie in the refrigerator. She felt at home. I knelt down in front of McKenna. "Hello, honey," I said. I tried to make my voice sound as soft as possible. "Did you have a good day?" I asked. She stopped hugging Atlas, stepped towards me, and wrapped her arms around my neck. I felt her soft little cheek pressed against mine. She pulled away and looked into my face. "Hi, Kane," she said. "Yes, I went to kindergarten, and they took us there." "What was it called, Mom?" she shouted to Ripley. "The Science Center," Ripley said, coming back into the living room to see us. "Yes, they took us there," said McKenna. "I like it." "What did you do?" "I went fishing," I said. "Do you like fishing?" "I don't know." She shrugged. "Mom never took me fishing." "Well, we'll have to fix that," I said. "Would you like to go fishing with Atlas and me?" "Yes," she said. "When will we go?" "We'll have to discuss this with your mother," I said. "You are hungry?" "Yes, I'm dying of hunger," she said. "Mom baked a pie." "I saw it," I said. I picked her up and carried her into the dining room. "There's a problem. My chairs were too low. I went to get some pillows so she could sit, and we had a good time." "Is there anything I can do?" asked Ripley. "Pour yourself some wine," I said. "We are ready." I put the cheese in and stirred it until it melted, took it all to the table, and by the time I was done, Ripley had drunk it, and we sat down to dinner. McKenna chatted happily the whole time and seemed to enjoy my culinary efforts and asked for more pasta. She ate everything, even the vegetables, and we all ate a piece of pea. It was chocolate and very tasty. Ripley has acquired some new skills. When we got married, she could only make toast, so I did most of the cooking. After the cake, we went into the living room, and Ripley put on an animated film for McKenna. We sat down on the sofa, and McKenna pressed herself against me on one side, and Ripley kicked off her shoes and tucked her legs under her, as women do. "It was amazing," she said. "You haven't lost your touch in the kitchen yet." "Thank you," I said. "Ripley, I don't want to ruin your mood, but what exactly are you doing?" I throw my hat back into the ring, she said. I've been trying to explain myself to you for a long time. I came to sit and talk with you 3 days after I moved out. You were not there. You disappeared. When I found out that you were back, I tried to talk to you. I didn't know your phone number, so I couldn't call you. You blocked me, so I couldn't write to you. I must have sat outside your office 100 times when I found out where you worked. I don't know how you managed it, but you never came out. I asked the guard to tell me when you were there, I said. I left through another door. She smiled sadly. I thought it was probably something like that. I came here and parked on the street. Sometimes I saw you leaving, but I could never tell if you were home. You never came home while I was here. I always checked, I answered. If I saw your car, I went to another place. That's why I didn't have a chance to tell you about McKenna, she said. You were gone the whole time I was pregnant. I brought the test kit, Kane. Just leave it when you leave, I told her. Assuming you're telling me the truth, what now? I need my husband, she said. McKenna, her father is needed. What the heck, I said. You drop a bomb on my life, move out after telling me some psychological bullshit, come back, drop another bomb and say you need me. Well, when I needed you, Ripley, you didn't give a damn. I looked at McKenna. She was delighted with her film. You didn't care at all that I needed you. Why should I care that you need me? You're wrong, she said. Okay, then tell me where I'm wrong, I said. What, my commander? I looked at McKenna. She was still engrossed in her film. Wasn't I big enough for you? Didn't I do it well for you? Ripley was horrified. Oh no, Kane, don't ever think like that. This has never been a problem for us, and you know it. No, you rocked my world. I've never... God, Kane, what is wrong with you? You are so suspicious. Why do men think this way? Do you think every woman is a size queen? Do you really think that we are all suffocating with the desire to get a 10-inch manhood? Are you a queen, Mom? Raised his voice McKenna. Damn, she was listening. Ripley laughed. No, baby, but you are a princess. McKenna giggled. Good deal, I thought. I leaned over and squeezed her knee. She smiled at me and my vision blurred. I want her, Ripley, I said. What do you mean? She asked. I mean, I want to be with her, I said. I want her to stay with me. I want her for the weekend. I want her for Christmas. Okay, I thought you would think that, she said. I know what you feel. The problem is that I want her too. We can work things out. I want her to stay the night, I said. We're kind of in the same package, Kane, she said. McKenna, do you want to spend the night with me and Atlas? I asked her. Yes, nodded her curly head. Baby, do you want to stay with just Kane and Atlas? She asked. This time she shook her head. No, she said. She was very persistent. I want you to stay too, Mom. I might need you. You just can't think about yourself, Kane, Ripley said. She is much more important. You also have to think about what she would like. I will work with you and you can have her almost any time you want, but you also have to be sensitive to her needs. It made sense, so I nodded. It didn't look like the old Ripley either. I understand. That's not what I wanted to talk to you about, she said. Kane, I need to ask you something. When I told you what was happening to me, I was 100% honest with you. It had nothing to do with... You know what? The idea that you are not big enough is simply ridiculous. Ripley was on the verge of hysterics. This is too much, she breathed. In any case, that wasn't the case, Kane. It was about the fact that I am not a very mature person. I was so in love with you. I am still like that now. I felt like I was being swallowed up, and there would be nothing left of me, and it scared the hell out of me. I panicked and did something stupid. I thought I needed to get away from you for a while. I never wanted this to be forever. I thought we'd meet a couple times a week, and She looked at McKenna and giggled. I would knock you off your feet. I know this all sounds like bullshit. This happens to me now, but not then. I was an immature child and thought like a child. Why didn't you say this? I asked. Damn it. It seemed to me that you wanted this to be forever for me. That's what I said, she insisted. I said exactly this, but Either I didn't say it very well, or you didn't listen very well. Have I ever said, I'm leaving you, Kane? I don't want to be your wife anymore? No, you said, Kane, I don't know how to say this, but I'm leaving. I have a house on Pine Street, and I'm moving there next Saturday. I need some time alone. I need to find my own identity. My voice became a little louder, and McKenna looked at me. It's okay, sorry, I said. Her eyes went back to the TV, but I knew she was listening to Ripley and me. It didn't work. This is too awkward, Ripley said. I want you to be able to say what you want. Are you doing anything tomorrow? I was going to watch basketball, drink beer, and wash and vacuum the car, I said. And what? Can I pick you up and take you somewhere? She asked. I'll ask Mom to look after McKenna. I want to tell you something. I wish I could tell you everything. Will you do this for me, Kane? I was very suspicious. Where do you want to take me? I asked. Jesus, Kane, stop being such a weakling, she said. Do you think I'm dangerous? Do you really think that I am planning to kill you and throw your body into the lake? Yes and no, I said. I don't think you're planning to kill me, but I think you're dangerous. You are the most dangerous person I have ever met. She laughed. Please, I'll be here at 10. Then I'll help you wash the car, okay? The film's credits were rolling. McKenna. Okay, I said. Don't hope so, Ripley. I won't, she promised. I played with McKenna and Atlas for a bit, and it was time for them to go home. McKenna hugged me tightly, and Ripley kissed me on the cheek. I was fastening McKenna to her seat. When will we spend the night with you? She asked. And when will you take me fishing? Her memory was like a steel trap. Don't you have a date on Sunday? I asked her. She giggled. No, I do not go on dates. Why do you need to know that? If your mom doesn't mind, I'll take you fishing on Sunday, I said. We'll talk about when you can spend the night, okay? Yes, she said. She nodded vigorously, her curls bouncing. But I really want to stay the night. Can Atlas sleep with me? I won't let him climb on the bed, I told her. It's getting kinda smelly. We can bring his bedding into your room and he will sleep on the floor next to your bed. She thought for a moment. Okay, she said. Ripley, can she go fishing? I asked. Of course, she said. See you at 10. That night I had nightmares. A little dark-haired girl was eaten by a giant fish, and I ran to save her. I was running in molasses, and it took me forever to get there. I sat up straight, my heart pounding. I was sweating a lot, and it was already 4 o'clock in the morning. I stood up and dried myself with a towel, adrenaline rushing through my veins. I lay down again. It took me a while to get that image out of my head, but the next thing, I knew it was 9. And the alarm on my phone was going off. I got up, quickly showered, got dressed, and ate a bun. I was finishing my second cup of coffee when Atlas stood up and headed towards the door. The phone rang as if on cue, and Ripley was nearby. Would you like a cup of coffee? I asked her. A little bit left. I don't want to throw it away. Is there a cup to go? She asked. I want to start. I rummaged around and pulled out 2. I poured it for her and then for myself. Can Atlas go? I asked her. Of course, she said. Could you get him a blanket or something? If you don't do this, we'll have to remove 2 cars. I grabbed the old blanket I had used in the car, and we followed her out. She was wearing khaki shorts and a green shirt, with the ends tied up and her belly button showing. There was a small diamond pin in it. This was something new. She filled out those shorts perfectly, and I could tell by the way she was bouncing that she wasn't wearing a bra. She caught my eye and gave me an evil grin. The only thing that we have always had in common is our love for cars. She wasn't driving the Escalade that day. It must have been her daily car. I was amazed. It was silver, and I saw that it was a Mercedes. What is this? I asked. This is a 2003 coupe, she said. Twin turbines, Kane. 830 pounds torque. Can I drive? I asked. She laughed. Hell no. When you let me drive the 442, I'll let you drive this one. Okay, let's see, I said. She cocked her head to the side and raised an eyebrow. Exactly. Like I really trust you. You never let me drive it. I'll let you drive and you'll refuse. I know you. She opened the door and spread a blanket on the back seat. She stepped back, and Atlas slowly climbed inside. He was already breathing heavily, and 2 white threads hung from his cheeks. She wiped them with the corner of the blanket. She started it and turned the air conditioning on full blast. It does not matter. He always breathed heavily in the car. We drove for about 30 minutes, and I knew where we were going. Hey, are you really going to kill me and throw my body in the lake? I asked. Atlas will bite you if you hurt me. No, the puppy will never bite its mother, she cooed. He gasped happily. It was cold in the car. I felt frost forming on my mustache. I looked at Ripley, and her breasts were trying to tear holes in her shirt. She saw my gaze. She looked down and giggled. It's a little cold, isn't it? You wanted to take him with you. I didn't mind looking at those little buttons at all, but I wasn't going to let her know. I just chuckled and turned away. I looked again a minute later when I thought she wasn't looking. We pulled up to the dock. She parked and opened the trunk. I went out and released Atlas. I flicked his leash. Most people get a little scared when they see a 160-pound beast coming towards them unless it's on a leash. Ripley took a large basket and a refrigerator out of the trunk. I grabbed the refrigerator handle, and she carried the basket. We walked down to the pier, and she nodded to the left. We walked about 50 feet, and she pointed out a nice boat tied up there. Here she is, she said. We climbed aboard and helped Atlas up. The worker dropped the lines, and Ripley took us out of the no-wake zone before she pulled the throttles back, and the big boat jumped like an airplane. She dragged us about 5 miles up the lake and stopped in a cove. Tie us to that tree, she said. She turned off the engines and I tied us down. Whose boat is this? I asked. Mine, she said. I've had her for 6 months now. You're doing pretty well, aren't you? I said. I signed a pretty big contract, she said. This is my signing bonus. Jesus, Ripley, you run around with the big boys, I said. Would you like a beer? She asked. I took one, and we went up to the front deck. We sat facing each other on the pillows, and I knew that the heavy blows were about to begin. Okay, I'll tell you this, she said. You may not like it, but if you just listen to me, I'll listen to you, okay? You want me to just sit here? I asked. No, I would like it, but I don't expect it, she said. She leaned back on the pillow and stretched out her incredibly long legs. Kane, I love you, she said. I've loved you since our first date. I've never stopped, and I don't think I ever will. You are the only man I have ever loved. You are the only one for me. When I came to you and told you that I needed to go away for a while, I never meant forever. I didn't even think about another man. I was still as deeply in love with you as before. I thought I loved you too much. I was mistaken. I didn't know it then, but I was confident in what I was doing. I hate to say it, Ripley, I said, but it sounds like buyer's remorse. It sounds like you went out and got what you thought you wanted, and it wasn't what you thought it was. No, you're wrong, she said. What I regret is how I did it, not what I did. I've grown up, Kane. I was a stupid, inexperienced girl. Now I'm a woman. I did what I had to do, and if you hadn't run away, it would have been a lot easier for both of us. I'm not sure it was bad. You're not sure it was bad? It was damn bad for me, I can tell you that. Are you saying that you don't regret leaving me? I was not going to leave you, Kane. I repeat to you, I moved out. It's not the same thing. This is bullshit, but have it your way. You had something you needed to do, so instead of trying to work it out together, you just moved out. And now you're telling me that everything would be fine if I sat at home alone and waited for you to decide to come back to me. I didn't say I was smart, Kane, and I already told you that I'm sorry for hurting you so much. However, I don't regret it, because while I was away, I grew up. When I found out I was pregnant, I had to grow up in a hurry. When did you find out? I asked. Not right away, she answered. I really didn't think about the missed period. The first thing I noticed was nausea in the morning. I just thought I was poisoned. It didn't go away, so I went to the doctor. That's when I found out. It was 9 weeks. Did you know that she was mine? I asked. Kane, there was no doubt about it, she said. You are the only man I allowed to touch me intimately from the time we started dating until the day our divorce became final. Couldn't wait for the ink to dry? I asked. She looked at me and got angry. Her eyes flashed. No, and I didn't touch anyone until I was born. Makena, she said. It seemed to me that she was playing some kind of game with me. What are you saying, Ripley? I'm just telling you that there was and is no doubt about who the father is. McKenna, she said. Okay, we can leave this alone for now. Okay, continue, I said. I'll try not to say anything until I have questions. She nodded. Kane, I didn't leave you. I wanted to be your wife. I haven't wanted anything else since our first date. I just wanted to see if I could do it on my own. We've been together since the second semester. I lived with my parents, lived in a dorm for 1 semester, and then moved in with you. Ripley, this doesn't make any sense. You've already done this yourself. Hell, by the time you were 21, you were already a celebrity, and it wasn't like you were part of a team or anything like that. It was just you. She thought for a moment. Yes, that's probably true, Kane. The Ripley O'Keefe that everyone thinks they know doesn't actually exist. She is a character I created and I play her very well. She has a lot in common with me, but she is not me. I think a lot of artists are like that. My career, all of this, she gestured around the boat's cabin, is her, not me. When I appeared in public, people always expected to meet her, not me. I began to wonder if it was really me or if I no longer existed. You know, I've never lived on my own. I also lived only with you, I told her. Yes, I know, she said. The difference is that I thought you would be fine without me. I didn't know what would happen to me if I didn't have you. I needed to learn to trust myself. It really had nothing to do with you or us. It was me. I needed to trust myself that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet. I spoiled it all. I'm very, very sorry. I never wanted anything to happen. I didn't understand how upset you were. I didn't understand how I was affecting you and hurting you. I knew you didn't like the idea, but I had to try it myself. I was young and stupid, Kane. I realized how much stupid. When did you leave? Well, it just seemed like psychobabble to me, I said. I felt like you were telling me that I'm not good enough for you, that you're looking for an upgrade, and that I'm not what you need. No, it wasn't like that at all. There were tears in her incredibly huge eyes. I needed you more than ever. I needed you to be there to help me see that I was a person on my own. I just needed to find the right words to tell you how much I love you, and that I won't leave you, that you didn't do anything wrong, that it was me. But when I pulled myself together, 3 days later, you left. I thought you wanted me to leave, I said. No. She fell on her knees in front of me and took my hands. I never wanted this. God, Kane, I've been looking everywhere for you. I called everyone I knew. I went home and cried for a long time. God, I cried so hard. Your parents didn't know where you were. You quit your job. You just disappeared. I didn't go to work for 2 weeks. I thought about you every minute, looked for you, tried to find you. Then I received divorce papers in the mail. I thought you wanted this, I repeated. Well, you were wrong, she said. That's when I found out that you were in Alaska. Your lawyer told me. I went to court and asked for advice. The judge agreed, but there was no way to bring you here. I could explain everything. And then I found out that I was pregnant. How could this happen? I asked. I fell into pieces, she said. I wondered how this could happen. For God's sake, I took the pills. You were the only man who ever made love to me. I knew it was our child, but I ruined everything so much that I didn't know what to do. I went to see your mom and dad. I told them everything. I told them how stupid I was. They agreed with me, I could tell, but they never said a bad word to me, she said. They took care of me for a whole week. I stayed with them. You have wonderful parents, Kane. They went to birthing classes with me, took me to doctor's appointments. Your mother was in the room with me when she was born. McKenna. She was the first one to hug her. I'm not even sure they believed she was ours, but they were my rock. I sat back in my chair trying to take it all in. I didn't know what to think or what to do. What do you want, Ripley? I finally asked. What do you want from me? You know perfectly well what I want, she said. Lord, why are you such a coward, Cain? I jumped to my feet. That's all, I shouted. If all you can do is call me names when you're the one who screwed up and left, that's the end. Take me back, Ripley. She just knelt and looked at me. No, she said. I rushed to the driver's seat. The damn keys are gone. Where are the keys? I won't give them to you, she said. We'll stay here until we're done. I'm already finished, I told her. Are you running away again? She asked. How are you doing, Cain? You're unhappy. What are you going to do? Are you going to quit McKenna? Return to Alaska? Why don't you try Siberia this time? Sit down and stop trying to prove your point. Your solution to problems is to run away. It won't work this time. You're not the kind of man who would abandon his daughter. Didn't you promise to take her fishing tomorrow? I felt incredibly tired. I came back and sat down. She locked me here. I'll ask again. What do you want from me, Ripley? I'm here, Cain, she said. I'm right here. I love you with all my heart. I've always loved you. I think you love me. I ask you to give me a chance. That's all I want. Just a chance. I'm asking you to let me prove that I've grown up. Let's take fishing, for example. McKenna. I know you like it, and I'm sure she will too. Meet her. Fall in love with her. She will make your life special again. I had to smile at the thought. I have no doubt about it. I want to do it, Ripley. And that's all? No. You know that's not true, she said. I'm taking the first step because I ruined everything. I'm inviting you on a date. I'm having a charity reception on Tuesday evening. I want you to come with me. When this is all over, I want you to ask me to dance. It's not too late because we have to pick up McKenna. Your parents agreed to keep her. Then I want you to let us spend the night at your house. We'll stay in your guest room. In the morning, I will prepare breakfast. And will you object to this? I thought for a minute. I have a condition, I said. She looked doubtful. Which? I'm preparing breakfast, I said. She laughed, and it gave me the same thrill. Maybe it's better this way, she said. Now I really cook. I need to feed the baby. I had to study. So what now? I asked. Are you going to hold me hostage here? Yes, she said. I want to swim. Are you ready for this? I forgot my swimming trunks, I said. You didn't mention that we were going on a boat ride. Remember when you took me canoeing on Labor Day the first year we were married? She asked. I actually remembered it. It was quite memorable. We stopped for lunch at a gravel bar. She undressed and lured me into the water. We ended up making love. Ripley, I don't think... I began. She stood up and began to slowly unbutton her blouse. My throat was dry and I took a sip from the bottle. She opened the hem of her blouse. I see you still like them, she said, looking at me. She was joking, of course. Ripley exudes more sensuality than can be described. Everything about her just screams sensual foot-high neon letters. She's gorgeous, but that's not the point. She has the ability to turn men into fools. Sure, we're fools when it comes to women, but Ripley is in a class of her own. We met for the first time on her 18th birthday. I took her to dance. She moves like a cat, lithe, sinuous, gliding as her weight shifts. At one point, she stood up and started dancing for me, just standing outside our booth. Two guys walked by 5 feet from where she was dancing. They both saw her when they were about 20 feet away. They couldn't take their eyes off her. They walked towards each other, so hypnotized by Ripley's dance that they crashed into each other, sending them both sprawling on the floor. That's the effect it produces. And she was still wearing clothes. The entire time we were dating and married, friends, strangers, people at the gas station, everyone asked me who she was. When they discovered that she was my girlfriend or wife, they would ask inappropriate questions or make stupid comments. Is she as good as she looks? Do you see this? Damn it, dude. Where did you get this from? It never ended. At first, this offended me, and I told them to shut up. For the 1,000th time, I simply ignored them. I would have fought every day of my life if I hadn't just given up. The amazing thing is that she didn't care. Of course, she knew what effect she was making, but she didn't really care. That curvaceous body carried all this promise and excitement, but I was the one who had to unwrap it. The new decoration in her navel seemed to tell me that everything had changed. The first time we made love was a spiritual experience for me. The feeling she gave me was somehow otherworldly. She was soft like a kitten, but there was steel inside. She never looked back, becoming a dynamic, aggressive lover, initiating sex as often as I did. I shook my head to get rid of these memories. I had to nip this in the bud. "Ripley," I said, "don't take off your clothes." She looked puzzled. "What? Why?" she asked. "You've never refused me before." "Ripley, this is too important. McKenna, too important. This is a serious matter and will not be revealed between the sheets." "Sex has never been our problem, at least as far as I know," I said. "Yes, you're damn sexy, and you know it. I would love to take you with me and take a trip down memory lane. It would be crazy good, but when it's over, I'll still be mad at you for leaving me, and you'll still be mad at me for not forgiving you." She thought for a moment, and then began to button her shirt. "You're right, Kane. I shouldn't have manipulated you like that, but what are we going to do?" "You tell me, because nothing I don't understand," I said. She sat for a long time, lost in her thoughts. I got up and got us both some beer. She lay back on the boat cushion, looking like a fiery-haired angel. God, she was so beautiful that my soul ached. She rested her chin on her hands and had the same expression on her face as the statue of the thinker. From time to time, she glanced at me and then sat down again. "The first thing we will do is cross out McKenna out of the equation," she finally said. "What do you mean we'll cross it out?" This statement upset me more than I could have imagined. "Won't you let me see her?" An expression of horror flashed across her face. No, Kane, that's not the point at all. Don't ever think like that. Kane, I wanted to say that I'm so sorry that I made her a part of you and me. I shouldn't have done this." "I understand," I said. "No, she should not be part of anything other than being loved and given everything that a loving mother and father can give." She nodded. "Yes, that's exactly what I meant. I really didn't want to involve her in this, but I had to do something to get you to talk to me." She thought for a moment. "There is something else. I don't regret barging in on you the other day, but I'm really sorry for, well, acting like I own this place. You know, sipping beer and swiping pizza. It was wrong, but I was so happy to finally be with you in your house that I almost felt dizzy. Can you understand this?" I did it. I opened my arms and beckoned her. She smiled sadly, and, crawling towards me, sat down on the deck between my spread legs. She leaned against me and I hugged her. It was so right and so good that I wanted to stay like this forever. "Will you go with me to the charity evening?" she asked. "Well, it's not like my social calendar is full," I chuckled. "Of course, Ripley, I'll be happy to go." We sat, talking quietly and finishing our beer. I had forgotten how nice it was to just sit and talk with her. I wanted to ask something, and I finally figured out how to do it. "Ripley, do you know how every fall Lucy tells Charlie Brown to run up and kick the ball while she holds it for him?" She laughed and interrupted me. "And every year she pulls him out and he lands on his butt?" "Yes. And next year she tells him why everything will be different from last year? And then it's like that?" We laughed, and then she looked at me seriously. "You're asking yourself if you can trust me not to take your ball away again, right?" "Yes, Ripley, but it's a little more important than a soccer ball." Ripley was lost in thought. This is something new, I thought. The Ripley I remembered would have said the first thing that came into her head and tried to correct it later. Finally, she spoke. "Am I really going to leave you again for some stupid reason?" Long story short, I've been there, done that, and paid way too much for the t-shirt. I paid for 4 years without you, and McKenna paid 3 years without her father. The real answer is that you don't know. Just like I won't know that you won't jump up and run away again when I do something stupid. There are no guarantees. It's a shame not. Kane, I'm not asking you to live with me or marry me again. I ask you to give me a chance. I'm successful in my career. I have all the toys of rich people, but even with all this, I think that what you, me, and McKenna could have together would be the best thing in my life. We thought about it for a while and then got a little caught up in what was going on in our lives, and it was like two old friends who hadn't seen each other in a long time. There was an awkward silence, but it wasn't much, and I think by the time the sun went down, we were both feeling better. She stood up and stretched, looking for all the world like a big cat. My legs gave way and she hugged me. Okay, now that we've got everything settled, let's go back. I need to get ready for fishing. I untied the boat, Ripley started the engine, and we headed back to the dock. On Sunday, Ripley dropped off McKenna, and I took her fishing. I knew there was a small stream in the national forest that was full of all kinds of sunfish. I set her up with a fishing net, and she danced with delight every time she pulled up a fat bluegill, rockfish, or green sunfish. When she pulled out the first one, I asked what she wanted to do with it. It was a tiny fish, brightly colored in orange and blue. "Can we keep her in an aquarium?" she asked. "We could keep her in an aquarium," I said, "but she won't be very happy there." "What else can we do?" she asked. "We can let her go," I told her. "If we catch bigger ones, we can eat them." She had to think about it for a while. "Let's let this one go and eat the big one," she finally decided. Here's what we did. We stopped fishing to build a small fire and roast hot dogs and marshmallows for lunch. By the time we reached the creek, she had captured my heart. By lunchtime, I was her slave, and by the time we carried the fish to my truck, I knew my life had changed forever. This is what I was born to be a father for. McKenna. She fell asleep in her little car seat on the way home, and my eyes became wet every time I looked at this sleeping little angel. When we returned, Atlas was all over us. I don't know if it was us or the fishy smell that interested him more. McKenna played with Atlas. I cleaned the fish, steamed the vegetables, and fried the fish. At first, McKenna, I was a little doubtful about fish, but then I became interested in the idea of eating food that I caught myself, tried, and really enjoyed. Sure, she probably enjoyed the ice cream we had for dessert more, but damn, she was only 3. Ripley packed a small bag for her so she could stay the night, but she asked if her mom could stay too. There was no way I could say no to this little cherub, so I called Ripley and invited her to spend the night. Before she had any hope, I made it clear to her that she would be sleeping with McKenna, not with me. At breakfast, she reminded me about accompanying her to the charity event, and I told her I had already made a commitment. On Tuesday, I took her arm and immediately felt all my resistance to her melt away. She was stunning. Her red hair was tied at the back of her head with a single ribbon and flowed freely down her bare back. Her dress was a simple halter style with a deep V neckline that showed off her generous cleavage. I swear that if the cutout in the back went a little lower, you would see the sexy secrets underneath. The skirt was modest, knee-length, loose and flowing. By the time I returned after checking our coats, she was already flitting from one group to another. I might as well have been invisible, although my presence seemed to make a difference. I felt like a forgotten person. She came and asked me to my first dance, and my spirit soared with this vision in my hands. When we returned to our table, she was immediately asked to dance again. For the rest of the evening, I only caught glimpses of her from afar, courting potential donors and chatting with the social elite. Every minute I felt more frustrated and powerless. Finally, I had enough. I walked over to where she was chatting with another potential donor, took her by the elbow, and led her to a corner where we could be relatively private. "What the hell are you doing, Kane?" "You embarrassed me there," she whispered angrily. This was a major donor I was talking to. "What am I, chopped liver? You yourself wanted me to be here? I didn't even want to come, and now I regret it. We can't have this conversation here," she said. "Come with me." She dragged me through a side door into a small park. "What's wrong with you, Kane? You behave childish." "So what if I'm like this? You're the one who wants me back. You're the one who got me into this stupidity. I thought my feelings would be more important." "Lord, what an egoist you are. I'm trying to help raise money for sick children, and you're sulking because I'm not holding your hand tightly enough." "Yes, of course. It's always about you. First, you had to find yourself, and now you have to save the children. What will happen next time? Save the puppies?" She sighed. "Kane, you're not some redneck. You know how it goes. My job is to make all these people with a lot of money feel good about themselves and about the children's hospital so that they give more money. You know all this. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible so we can get out of here and go dancing, and you're still sulking about what happened 4 years ago. Why don't you grow up already? It ruined everything. I didn't even go back for my coat. I just turned and walked to my car to drive home, ignoring her screams for me to wait. Less than an hour later, I heard a taxi pull up and she knocked on my door. "Kane, open up. You forgot your coat." "Damn, looks like I'll have to let her in." Before I could open the door, she flew in like a natural disaster and threw my coat onto the nearest chair. "What an ass you are," she said. "Do you have any idea how awkward it was for me to try to come up with some lame excuse for why I left so suddenly? I'm sure they'll forget about it by the next fundraiser." "Grr, you're just hopeless," she said. "Come on, you have to take me home." I grabbed the keys and drove her home in stony silence. When we arrived at her house, I asked, "If I'm so bad, why are you trying so hard to get me back? Why don't you just leave me alone?" She didn't answer when she got out of the car, but then she turned and leaned toward the car. "Because I love you, idiot," she said, slamming the door and rushing into the house. I just sat there stunned for a few minutes before heading home, shaking my head. I mean, who says I love you, moron? There was no point in her taking a taxi to my house just to call me an asshole. I thought about what she said. Maybe she was really trying to be efficient. If I had tagged along, she would have had to introduce me to the people she was chatting with. It would take time, and it would be inconvenient too. The more I thought about it, the more I thought she might be right. I acted like a complete idiot. I really should call her and apologize. The next morning I was about to call her, but I suddenly found that I didn't know what to say. I'm just not used to apologizing. I mean, I could just say, "Hey, he's a jerk," which might make her laugh, but what should I say after that? The worst part was that Ripley had apologized to me several times over the past week. It was as if she knew how to do it, and I didn't. This made me even more nervous, so I hesitated and didn't call. It didn't help that they published a list in the newspaper of the Children's Hospital's top donors, and at the top of the list was Miss Ripley O'Keefe. We didn't speak until Friday morning to set up a second visit, McKenna. This time, Ripley did not stay overnight. McKenna. I was excited and I was nervous. Ripley dropped off McKenna, who immediately ran to look for Atlas. "Here are the DNA results, Kane," she said. "As you can see, the probability that you are the father is 99.9%. I glanced at them briefly. I already knew. I felt a connection between us. I needed to say something more important. I knew I might be wrong, but I had to try. "Ripley, about Tuesday evening." I saw how her face hardened, but I stubbornly looked at the floor. Well, you were right. I acted like a complete idiot. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't spoil things too much. I stood and looked at the floor. Ripley was waiting for me. When I finally raised my eyes to look at her, she had such a warm gaze and a gentle smile. I almost melted. "Thank you, Kane. I appreciate it." She reached out and stroked my cheek. "Partly it was my fault. I should have told you in advance what awaited you. I guess I'm still not explaining it to you very well. I'll work on it." We agreed that I would drop off McKenna, and Ripley left. As soon as I managed to tear off McKenna from Atlas, I washed her and asked what she wanted for dinner. Stupid question. "Pizza?" I still don't know why, but I took her into town to a pizza place. I hadn't been paying much attention to our order, so when I turned to leave, I was stunned to see Ripley deep in conversation with some strange guy who had both of her hands in his. I was ready to explode, but McKenna felt something was wrong and pulled my hand with a worried expression on her face. "What happened, Kane?" she asked. I quickly calmed down and led her to my car. She was still upset, and it took me a few minutes to calm her down. Luckily, she didn't ask me again why I was upset, and she and Ripley never saw each other. But I was still seething inside. She had almost convinced me that she really wanted to get back together, and here she was, with another guy, almost at the first opportunity. We returned home and ate our pizza. McKenna had almost finished hers, and I had to make sure she didn't give Atlas too much. We were both tired and went to bed early. Although I didn't go to bed, I was still so wound up from what I had seen, and was about to tell Ripley to just forget about everything when I heard the shuffling of little feet. "Kane," she said, Kane, I can't sleep. Can I sleep with you? Of course you can, honey, I said, bending down and picking her up. I was glad I decided to wear pajamas to bed. McKenna. She quickly fell asleep, her gentle snoring easily drowning out Atlas's snoring. The last thing she said to me completed my enslavement. Before falling asleep, she whispered, "I love you, Daddy." I had almost nothing to say to Ripley when she took McKenna the next morning. I asked if I could take her the following Saturday, and Ripley agreed. She looked disappointed when I didn't ask her to stay for breakfast, but she didn't say anything. The week flew by, and I couldn't wait to see you again. McKenna. This time I took her in my arms. We were going fishing and having a picnic on the White River, and Atlas was coming with us. We settled down under a huge oak tree. McKenna and Atlas played happily on the shore while the giant trout waded. I waded into knee-deep water and began a false cast, simply pulling some line out of the water. I've been fishing for about 20 minutes, talking to McKenna, which splashed along the shore. There was a log sunken below the surface and a deep pocket of water behind it. I made a perfect cast, twitching the fly as it hovered over the log. I pulled the hook. Nothing. Now I was engrossed in fishing. I must have taken another 100 shots, trying to get another hit out of that monster. This was a one-time deal. The huge fish was ready. I prepared to move upstream and called McKenna. She didn't answer. I remembered that I had not heard anything for some time. I was busy concentrating on the monstrous fish. I turned around, but didn't see her or Atlas. I looked around. "McKenna," I called. "Where are you, baby?" Nothing. Along the shore, about 20 yards from the water, stretched a strip of tall grass, almost as tall as my head. Beyond it was a forest, deep and dense, stretching for God knows how many miles. I found a path in the grass and a small Spider-Man toy lying in the dirt on the path. It was a toy McKenna. A little further I saw the imprint of her small sneaker and one of Atlas's footprints. I threw the fishing rod into the grass, took off my waders and ran. I searched feverishly, calling for her and Atlas. Panic filled my mind as I thought about that little angel lost here in the forest. I screamed until my voice became hoarse and weak. When I finally collapsed from exhaustion, I began to think rationally again. I pulled out my phone. Great, there was no network. I made my way back through the bushes, through the grass, and ran to the truck. I drove to the top of the hill and was relieved to finally see two stripes. I called the sheriff's department and reported what happened. They promised to immediately send a search party. Then I had to make the hardest call of my life. I had to call Ripley and tell her I lost our daughter. I felt inferior to worm shit. It took me 5 minutes to gather my courage. When she answered, I simply blurted out, "Ripley, I need you. I was fishing and didn't pay attention. McKenna and Atlas are gone and I lost them, Ripley. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm such an idiotic ass." "Kane, stop it," she said. "Call the sheriff's department." "I've already done it," I could barely say. I cried like a child. I lost my child. "Okay, go look for her," Ripley said. "I'll come as soon as I can." I drove back to the lot where we had parked, hoping to see the little doll waiting for me with a huge black dog. My heart sank when I saw the vacant lot. I ran frantically through the forest again, calling out their names, searching everywhere I could. I was on the verge of fainting when I heard the sound of an approaching helicopter. I ran back to the parking lot and arrived just in time to see 5 men jump out of the helicopter. I told them what happened, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. No, worse. A stupid monster who lost his daughter because he was fucking fishing. I saw contempt in their eyes. They asked me to stay in the parking lot in case she returned and quickly disappeared into the forest as the helicopter took off. I stood there helplessly, tears streaming down my cheeks for perhaps 10 minutes, and I saw Ripley's Mercedes coming down the hill. I ran to the car as soon as it stopped, holding the door handle helplessly until she opened it and started to get out. "Ripley, I'm so sorry," I began. "I'm such an ass that I just didn't look." She cut me off. "None of this matters, Kane. Let's find our daughter. Where did you last see her?" I led her down the path through the tall grass and ran until she told me to stop. "We're not running. she said. Let's take our time and watch the signs. We walked parallel to the tall grass, looking everywhere for some clue. I was clutching a Spider-Man figurine in my hand. Eventually, we came to a small stream that ran between grassy banks down to the river. We walked up the creek, climbing steadily for perhaps half a mile. We were in a dense forest, but there was a path. Ahead, there was a small, steep rise, something like a clearing, and grass had invaded the meadow. When we emerged from the forest, I screamed hoarsely. Atlas lay in the grass, and there, breathing happily, resting her head on his warm side, slept McKenna. I ran up to them and felt dizzy. I fell to my knees and hugged her tiny figure. She stirred and woke up, clinging to my chest. She opened her eyes and looked at me with her indigo blue eyes. They opened when she saw my face. "What happened, Dad?" she asked. I couldn't speak. "Why are you crying, Kane?" she asked, touching my cheek and wiping away a tear. "I thought I lost you, baby," I croaked. "I couldn't find you anywhere. Oh, God. I thought I lost you. I love you so much, McKenna, that I would kill myself if anything happened to you." I felt Ripley's hand on my shoulder. I looked at her and tears rolled down her cheeks. "It's okay, Daddy." McKenna caught my attention again. Atlas and I were sleeping, and I was tired. We drank this water from the stream and just rested for a while. "You're not angry with me, are you?" "No, baby, no," I assured her. "I can never be angry with you. I'm angry at myself for not watching you better. I'll never do that again." "I was fine," she said. "Just a little tired. Now can we eat our picnic?" "Of course," I said. "Can your mother stay and eat with us?" She was thrilled that Ripley was staying. I called the sheriff's department and they called off the search. No doubt I would have to pay a hefty bill for this little fiasco. I did not care. I would give everything I had to get it back, McKenna safe and sound. I carried McKenna to our oak tree, and by the time we got there, she was already asleep. I sat down with my back against the tree, just holding her, not wanting to let go. Ripley sat on the blanket in front of me, her incredibly long legs crossed, giving me occasional glimpses of her green seafoam panties. My thoughts were all over the place, mostly about what an ass I was, and this view wasn't helping. "Kane, are you okay?" asked Ripley. "You mean, besides feeling like an immature ass?" "Yes, except for that," she said with her usual laugh. "Well, I'm hungry," interrupted the little bundle of love in my hands. We laughed, and the feast began. We packed up our picnic and walked to Ripley's house. Together we tucked our tired little angel into bed, enjoying her sleepy smiles. Ripley poured us some coffee and we sat down to talk. "Ripley, I have to say, well, I think I can tell you." I sighed heavily and continued, "You did a great job raising McKenna. She's just perfect, and you've obviously been a great mom. Damn, I forgot what Ripley looked like when I said nice things to her. The glow on her face was so bright that her hair seemed dull. This made things difficult, but I had to continue. So why do you want me to be her daddy? You can't take me in public without me acting like an immature asshole. You leave her with me and I make her get lost in the forest. I love her to pieces, Ripley, but I'm afraid that this will happen." I couldn't finish. I buried my face in my hands as the tears started flowing again. I felt Ripley's hands on my wrists. I opened my eyes. She was kneeling in front of me. Her own eyes were wet. "Kane, you are her daddy. You know it, I know it, and most of all, she knows it. I had to grow up a lot to become a mom, but I did it. I had to. She depended on me. It's your turn. You will have bad moments like today, but you will have something that I didn't have." "What?" "I'll be here with you as long as you let me. I will help you like your parents helped me. We'll do this together." Our eyes met, and we both wanted the same thing, but we had something else to deal with first. "Can I ask you something?" She rested her elbows on her knees, resting her sharp little chin on her palms. "Ask," she said. "Last Saturday, I had McKenna," I began. "She wanted pizza for dinner, and I went with her to the city. I saw a light flash in her eyes. When we went there, I saw you there with some guy. You were holding hands and looking very serious. Who is he, Ripley?" "Asshole," she said. His name is Jeff Conley. He is the station manager. We dated for some time. He was much more serious than me. I stopped seeing him after you finally spoke to me that first time by the pool. He was very upset about this, and I agreed to meet him and tell him why it ended. He didn't take it very well. He was holding both of your hands, and from where we stood, it looked like you were going to kiss him, I said. Are you lying to me, Ripley? Her eyes flashed dangerously. What the hell is wrong with you, Kane? She spat. No, I wasn't going to kiss him. Then why did he hold both of your hands if you told him it was all over? She sighed. I told him that I would let him speak. It wouldn't change anything, and I thought he'd end it faster if I let him hold my hands. I told him not to call me anymore. He was practically stalking me. Are you jealous? Well, that's not necessary. Are you still wearing the diamond he gave you? What? What the hell are you talking about? She was completely confused. The diamond hairpin he gave you instead of a belly button. Are you still wearing this? Kane, will you ever pull your head out of your ass? Did it ever occur to you that I might have bought this for myself? I can afford these things more than he or you? So why not? I saw my friend wearing one, thought it looked cool, and bought it. Okay, now I really feel stupid. Before I could say anything, she continued. And then you did your usual trick. You ran away. If you had stayed here a little longer, you would have seen him spit in my face and call me a bitch. You should have seen how I slapped him and left. Did you see that, Kane? No, I answered. I wanted to get out of there McKenna before she sees you. Oh, she said. We both sat there feeling stupid, then our eyes met and we laughed together. Did he spit on you? Jesus, Ripley, he's so paranoid. She smiled wryly. Yes, I can choose them, right? The man I love is moving to fucking Alaska to get away from me. Then I get a creepy stalker who spits in my face. Sorry, Ripley, I said. I shouldn't have run away like that. It hurt me, you know? She reached out and ran her fingers across my cheek, leaving a trail of fire that burned long after the touch had faded. I know, she said quietly. I'm sorry I hurt you so much, Kane. I thought about that. I know I told you that I don't regret moving out, but I'm not sure about that anymore. I know that from now on I want us to figure things out together, if you let me. Can we overcome all this pain? I don't know, I admitted. Do you want to try? More than anything else, she said. Our life began to turn into a pleasant routine. I had McKenna on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. We tried to do something together as a family at least twice a week. We still had our problems and awkward moments, but they became fewer and farther between. Ripley and I were dating again. We still weren't very close. We had some hot kisses, but we didn't jump into bed. I think we were both careful, not wanting to put pressure on ourselves or each other. We danced around it, and I had an eternal box of blue balloons. I think we both knew it was just a matter of time, but we wanted to get it right. Ripley had Saturday off, and in the afternoon we went McKenna to the cinema at the shopping center. We took her to the food court for an orange smoothie and sat at the table watching her drink it. I saw Ripley look over my shoulder, and she leaned over, hissing at me. Oh, she said. Here comes the trouble. Jeff Conley is coming here. We both stood up and watched him approach. Jeff, said Ripley, what are you doing here? What do you think, bitch? I'm here to take you from this brat to where you belong. Jeff, Ripley said calmly and slowly, I told you that I found my ex-husband and I'm trying to work things out so we can be together again. Well, I'm telling you, we're not done until I say we're done, so dump that brat and let's go. You can't just leave me whenever you want. I leave women. They don't leave me. He moved towards Ripley and I felt her bristle, so I stepped between them. Listen, Mr. Conley, I said. This is my wife, and no one talks to her like that. I think you should calm down and leave. They with McKenna won't go anywhere. You don't want to cause trouble. Trouble? He grinned. You don't know what trouble is, weakling. He put his hand in his pocket. Before I could react, Ripley flew between us, suffering a nasty gash on her arm. I think he was a little shocked, and I took advantage of that and disarmed him. I looked at Ripley. Her face was white. "Mother, my mom is hurt!" screamed McKenna. I took off my belt to make a tourniquet. "Someone call 911!" I yelled, kneeling next to Ripley and wrapping the belt around her arm. One of the passers-by turned out to be a nurse and took over applying the tourniquet. "Take off your shirt," she said. "Eh?" I asked in confusion. "Take off your shirt," she repeated, "and apply pressure to the wound." I did as she said. She must have sensed my anxiety. "Don't worry," she said. "Everything looks worse than it really is." I wasn't sure if she meant it or was just trying to reassure me, but I had no choice but to believe her. The alternative was too terrible to imagine. It seemed like it took forever, but paramedics finally arrived to take Ripley to the hospital. McKenna and I had to wait a few minutes while the police took Conley away, and I gave them a brief statement, promising to come to the station as soon as I was sure that Ripley would be okay. When we got to the hospital, Ripley was already in the operating room. We were with McKenna. We went to the waiting room, and I spent the next few minutes calming her down, and then I called my parents to come too. While I waited for my parents to arrive, I had time to really think about our relationship, from our breakup until now. I couldn't imagine Ripley leaving me to find herself by throwing herself in front of a madman. Has she really changed that much? I really hoped so. I wanted Ripley, and McKenna were in my life. Will this mean remarrying Ripley? That was a question for another day. My parents and Ripley's parents arrived around the same time. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to clean myself up, and the hospital gave me a gown. McKenna ran straight to my grandparents, and they took turns holding her on the other side of the room while I told them what happened. The doctor came out with good news. Although the wound was deep and Ripley had lost a lot of blood, it was otherwise not serious, and she was expected to make a full recovery. She was still unconscious while recovering, but would soon be able to have a limited number of visitors. McKenna. I wanted to go to my mother, but she was very tired. My parents lived closer, so they took her home, and Ripley's parents and I sat down for our nervous vigil. Only a couple of hours later, the nurse came out. "Is Mr. Kane here?" she asked. "I'm Kane," I said, "but it's just Kane, that's my name." "Well, Kane, Miss O'Keefe woke up and is asking for you." I stood up to follow the nurse. When her parents stood up, the nurse said, "Only him." Her parents weren't happy, but they complied with Ripley's wishes. When I looked into the room, she looked completely exhausted. But when I entered, she immediately perked up. "Oh, Kane," she said, "I'm so glad you're okay. I was so worried about you." "Were you worried about me?" I asked, stunned. "You took this blow on your hand for me. I was afraid that I would lose you again." "Kane, the only way to lose me is to run away again." "Ripley, I will never run away from you again. I still love you. I have always loved you and never stopped loving you. I tried to stop so the pain would go away, but nothing happened. Now I love you more than ever. All I want is for you and McKenna were in my life. Kane, I hope now you understand that I have always loved you. I wasn't always smart or acted like an adult, but I always loved you. All I ever wanted was a second chance to show you how much I love you. I will never love anyone again, and I will never leave you." I leaned over and kissed her tenderly. "McKenna went home with my parents, but yours are here, and I know they will be glad to see you. I'll send them, then I'll rest a little, and I'll bring them in the morning, McKenna and my parents." "Okay, Kane, just promise me you'll come back." I kissed her again, a little harder this time. "You can count on it, baby," I said with a wink. I went back to the waiting room to break the news to her parents. I called my parents and then went home to clean up and get some rest. I got up early, had a quick snack, and went to my parents for McKenna. My parents followed us to the hospital, and we had a good time with Ripley. The look of pure joy on her face when she saw McKenna made me wince. This little cherub ran across the room and rushed at his mother. "Mom, I was so scared," she said. McKenna. "Sorry, baby," Ripley said. "Mom didn't mean to scare you. It's okay. Grandma and Grandpa made me feel better." "Thank you," Ripley mouthed to my parents. Ripley was going to stay in the hospital another day, so I excused myself to take care of some things. I went down to the police station, but it was just a formality. Between the security cameras of the shopping center and all the witnesses, Conley was doomed, and he was leaving for a long time. I met with her parents to make arrangements and then returned to spend the day with Ripley, McKenna, and a constant flow of visitors. As we drove to the hospital the next day to pick up Ripley, I turned to McKenna. "Remember, baby, it's a big secret, okay?" I made a motion to zip up my lips, and McKenna giggled and copied me. The nurses brought Ripley in her wheelchair to the car, and while I helped her into the car, McKenna couldn't seem to stop giggling. "Okay, you two," said Ripley. "What are you up to?" McKenna just giggled, and I smiled like a sphinx. I told Ripley that she would stay with me while I recovered, so she wasn't surprised when we pulled up next to me. When we arrived at my door, McKenna said, "Mom, close your eyes." As soon as I opened the door, McKenna told her to open her eyes. Ripley gasped and couldn't help it when she saw our parents standing in front of a large homemade sign, "Welcome home." Ripley looked around and saw a lot of her things scattered around the living room, and handprints McKenna on the sign. She hugged her parents, then mine, and I saw my mother whisper with tears in her eyes, "Welcome home." I cooked some hamburgers and hot dogs on the grill, and after we ate, our parents congratulated us on getting back together and left. McKenna felt sleepy, and we put her to bed, and since it was a special occasion, we put Atlas on her bed. We sat in the dark living room, sipping wine, alone in our thoughts. Ripley pressed herself against my shoulder. "Tell me the truth, Ripley," I asked. "Did you ever really think we'd go back to this?" "Honestly, probably. In my wildest dreams, I did just that. But is it real?" I nodded. "Really, I was just hoping that we could be friends, that we could get along well enough to become parents." "McKenna, everything else is just icing on the cake." I lowered my hand next to the sofa. "Well," I said, "I don't have frosting, but I do have a can of whipped cream." I raised my hand, sprayed it on her nose and licked it, then chased her into the bedroom. She must have still been weak because I caught her at the door. I picked her up and carried her the rest of the way. We kissed. I tried not to hurt her hand. I set her on her feet at the end of the bed, and she slid into my arms. I pulled her close to me, and her arms wrapped around my neck. We made love. "There is no more Ripley, only Zool," she said in a low, demonic voice. "Roar." I stood there for a second while she looked at me, and then we both burst into hysterical laughter. I ran up and pounced on her. She winced, and I immediately repented. "Sorry, baby, did I hurt your hand?" "Yes, but not much," she said. I pressed my nose to hers. I looked deep into her eyes, and we both burst out laughing again. God, how I missed this woman, this ridiculous, funny, brilliant, and beautiful woman. "Relax, beauty," I told her when I could speak again. "I'm going to make your day better." "You've already done it," she said. "I'm home, Kane." Marley crawled across the floor as fast as she could as an 11-month girl. "Yes, we have a love for M-names for girls." Atlas rolled his eyes and saw her approaching. He snorted slightly, but didn't move anything except his eyes. She crawled over and placed both hands on his stomach. One of his legs rose and waved weakly in the air, trying not to throw it off balance. She slowly rose, using him as support, until she stood. Then she swayed unsteadily and plopped down onto her diaper with a slight squeal. McKenna giggled, clinging to me. We read a book. "She's stupid, Daddy." She looked at me with her incredibly huge blue eyes. "Yes, it's her," I said. The door opened, and Ripley stood there, illuminated by the setting sun. She was great. Long red hair flowed around her like flames. She was wearing a tight skirt and top that showed off all her assets, and she had plenty of advantages. She was great. She was also deadly and deceptive, and she would break your heart. She could also fix it, and I knew mine was safe in her care. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one. Listening to the next one. Listening to the next one. listening to the next one, 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 listening to the next one.